Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heights. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
Hey, welcome everybody. It is let's see here. It's 2:37 on the East Coast on a Tuesday afternoon. So we appreciate you all who are here tuning in. Hopefully your guys' day is going well. Welcome back to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, episode 40. Daniel, we've officially hit 40 episodes.
Wow.
So
has it been 40 already?
Yeah, man, it's been 40. So we're we're at the big 4. We're 10 away from 50. But it's good to be back on the channel. We have a lot to talk about. I'm sure you guys in the comments section have some things you want to talk about. George, hello. Kelsey, Daredevil, Steeler fan, Jennifer, hello. Thank you all for tuning in. So Daniel, before we get into everything, how was your afternoon today?
It's going well, man. It's been a bit of a busy day, but got everything taken care of for the most part. Got a couple things still to run out and do, but been busy, so the days have gone kind of quick for me. How about yourself?
Well, that's good, man. That's good. Honestly, just kind of really getting things going. Going to run some errands once we get done here, and then no work today, and then back at it tomorrow. So figured that I know usually we do this later in the evening, stuff like that, but sometimes we got to switch it up if certain things, we got to kind of get done or do. So we appreciate you guys being here, even though it's usually an early show. Also, Mark will probably be back for an episode in a couple weeks, right? Didn't you say probably a couple weeks or so he'll be back on the episode? Yeah,
I think we're aiming for the 16th. I think that was the day. I think that's Tuesday.
What day is that? That's it's Tuesday.
Yeah. So Marky D will be making his reappearance back on the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, talk about Steelers football and the most recent news. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. So it'll be good to have him back in the fold for an episode, and then we'll kind of see if as the season goes on, he might find himself back into the fold more consistent. We'll see. But Z's in the chat, as we can see. Z and I actually came on my channel. So whenever you guys in your free time, he made an appearance on my channel. We recorded yesterday. We'll be up later today. So we were both kind of talking about the state of where the Steelers and the Ravens are, because he's a Ravens fan. So we're kind of talking about that. If you guys are interested in that, you guys can have a check out on that yourselves. We appreciate it. But we know the big thing to talk about is from the NFL draft for the Steelers. And man, it felt a lot different than what the Steelers normally do. I feel like normally what they do, they kind of stay with the status quo. The last few years, it seems like their pick has been pretty predictable what direction they were going to go. This year, they could have went multiple different directions, from tackle to cornerback. There were some people putting wide receiver out there for whatever reason. There was even I even saw a couple people saying edge. I'm not really quite sure why. So it was one of those years where it was just really unpredictable, and that's what made it a lot of fun. So Daniel, are you pleased with really how the whole Steelers draft went? Did you enjoy it? Were you surprised by anything along those lines? How did you feel about the Steelers draft, the draft in general, and what they decided to do?
I thought they did a fantastic job, man. The biggest surprise were who were the players available in the first 3 picks, or the first 3 rounds. Let me put it that way. And so, I thought they got great value in positions in positions of need. We knew they needed an offensive tackle. We knew they needed cornerback and defensive line help, and they addressed those positions in the first 3 rounds. And then they came in with, a big monster in the third. And I'm sure we'll go through it pick by pick, round by round, a little bit later. But, nothing. It's exciting. I think this is the first draft that the Steelers, obviously they love their draft. They always feel like they did the right moves. perhaps maybe not the fan base or the talking heads and the mainstream media don't always agree, but I think for the first time in a very long time, all three of those agree. The fans, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the media all think that this is one hell of a draft.
Yeah.
I think this, like I mentioned before, you got some key players in key positions that you were really needing, all throughout this entire draft. And I'm excited to see these guys in rookie minicamp, see what the buzz is about between them and how they're coming along.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I don't really see anything negative when it comes to what the Steelers did. Really, I think this has the potential, and Z will tell you, when it comes to Steelers draft, like, I'm not somebody that just loves every single pick or anything like that. Like, there's times where there were some picks they took that worked out that I didn't really care for at the time. But
Right.
I think this Steelers draft could be their best draft in the last 10 years. Their first four guys, I think, all have the upside and the ability to all be impactful players for this team. And
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And they traded up. They were sitting at 17. And once we saw, I don't know, dude. I think once I saw Paris Johnson go to the Cardinals when the Cardinals traded back and then they traded up again.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Artie Burns pick. You're right. Hated that pick. Don't know what he's talking about. When Paris Johnson went off the board, I'm like, okay, can we start to see some of these tackles go earlier? And then Darnell Wright went to 10. The Jets were at 14, 100% they were going to take Broderick Jones. Or the Jets were at 15, 100% they were going to take Broderick Jones at 15 if the Steelers didn't jump up. 100% they were going to. So the Steelers felt the need. Okay, we see where everything's at right now. They got who they wanted. Didn't really have to ultimately do much. They still got a 4th-round pick in return, even though they gave up a 4th-round pick to jump up. And that was the right move. A guy that some people think was the best tackle. Some people had him as a second-ranked tackle, whatever. But they needed somebody there. They needed an upgrade on the left side. They upgraded both spots of the left side of the line this offseason, which needed to be done. And I don't see how anybody could not like getting Broderick Jones at 14. I think they did a really good job on that.
Yeah. When the Steelers traded up initially, I thought that there was an opportunity there for them to get Christian Gonzalez. I actually jumped up and I was like, holy smokes, they're moving up to get.
Do you think
Christian.
that's who they were going to take?
I thought initially, and then I realized who they jumped up in front of, which was the New York Jets. And then prior to the pick coming out, I was like, all right, well, this is either Christian or this is Broderick. And as, time wound down, I was like, yeah, I think this is Broderick. And they showed him in his house, and he looked like he was excited, and they were grabbing hats behind him. And so I was like, yeah, I'm pretty positive this guy's going to be the pick. And so, some of the corners were dropping, and I realized also that this was a very deep corner class. So I felt that the Steelers were going to have a great value at 32. And maybe even if perhaps something crazy were to happen and there was a running corners after the Steelers pick, maybe perhaps they used 32 to jump up back into the draft in the first round to pick one up. But I wasn't seeing that. Christian Gonzalez ended up going all the way to 17. So it is what it is. I was excited about it. I think this is a perfect pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. One of the things that I've been talking about when it comes to Broderick Jones is his athleticism. He's a guy that probably has the highest ceiling amongst the tackles that were there just based on his performance and athleticism. And, Coach Tomlin is one that says he doesn't shy away from coaching. So, he's going to want to get the players that have the best intangibles, those athletic abilities. And I think this is a very good time for the Pittsburgh Steelers to have combined the athleticism with the draft pick value. They've gone in previous years before and drafted somebody like a Terrell Edmonds who was hyper athletic. However, the value there wasn't just there. You could have gotten him later. And so in this situation here, you have a guy who is value of the pick, worthy of the pick, and has that athleticism. And I think this is going to bode well for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the situation when it comes to pulling and doing some of these screens. Last season, the Steelers had a lot of offensive linemen getting down the field early. And in my opinion, that's because they had to cheat a little bit. They had to leave a little bit early so that they can get to the position that they needed to. Broderick Jones is not one of those guys. He can get there in time and be in position because of his speed and ability to move out there in open space. So I thought this was the perfect pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that even if all the tackles were on the board, Maybe they go Paris Johnson, but I think that they may end up selecting Broderick Jones just based on his athleticism alone, even if they
Yeah.
had their choice of all the tackles. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a very strong pick. I thought it was a good pick. He's a very young guy as well. So this guy could be the staple point for that left, blind spot for Kenny Pickett for years to come. And
Really
so,
long time. Oh
yeah,
for
I'm
sure.
excited about it. He chose number 77 in reference to his teammate that passed away, also out of Georgia.
Right.
So, yeah, I thought this was a very solid pick, and I think the Steelers went up and they got their guy, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah, they
you
did.
can't be upset with that.
Well, did you hear that Mike Tomlin, there was something that he was heard talking to somebody from somebody said this who was, I don't know. I'm not quite sure if this was where this was at, but somebody said that he was heard saying that he passed on Christian Gonzalez because there wasn't much of the competitive edge there from him.
Yeah, I'd heard that as well. That he didn't. That Christian Gonzalez ended up not doing so well in his and his when his pre-draft visit. That supposedly Coach Tomlin talked with Minka about it, saying that he's not going to be, seeing this guy anytime soon. And I think it had to do with I'm not into college ball that much, so I know. I think the story went that Christian Gonzalez had transferred schools and went to Oregon, but was somewhere else prior to. And when Coach Tomlin asked him, what was the choice of, going to Oregon, he said that he was just following his defensive coach. And so I think he was expecting something about maybe perhaps higher competition, things of that nature. And he didn't like that answer that he got from him. He wants guys that he calls goons, tough dudes, big guys that want to be in the middle of things and want to put their face in the middle. And I think they got that in Broderick Jones and in their second pick in Joey Porter Jr., as far as that cornerback goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking when they traded up to 14, because Z and I were on the phone, and it's kind of what we do every draft. I was like, all right, this is either going to be Christian Gonzalez or Broderick Jones. And, but I think it was definitely the right thing because really what you ultimately, not who you got at pick 32, but just because with the amount of really corners that could have went early second round, et cetera, they could have found somebody. There could have been somebody there. And when you look at after Broderick Jones, because Paris Johnson, Darnell Wright were the first two, then Broderick Jones. Really after Broderick Jones, it's kind of a big drop off in the sense of getting somebody that can really be your tackle for a long time.
Right, exactly. And I don't think that there was a tackle left on the board that you would put out there on the left side.
No, absolutely
I
not.
think they were all probably right tackles, people that would compete with Chicks-Core for. And so, I saw that as a huge plus. Like, this guy is going to be your left tackle protecting Kenny Pickett's blind side. And, he's a tough guy, man. Some of those, he's got to work on a few things. He puts his head down sometimes and he'll find himself on the floor in doing so. But, he hasn't been coached by a professional offensive line coach. And so, there's when it comes to any rookie, you got to get some coach him up in there. And I think that, once he gets into the lab, so to speak, with Pat Meyer and they start working on those technique things, then the physical athleticism is going to just kind of take over as well. And if he can put those things together, I think this guy's going to be a great offensive tackle.
No, I agree with you, dude, 100%. And that dude, I don't know why. I found it really funny. Broderick Jones went to the Pittsburgh Zoo all by himself. I don't know why. I like it. I just found it really funny for just a really odd reason. Like the camera guys are with him and stuff like that, and he's just like by himself, like just with like the animal stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like they do that with every draft pick. It's freaking weird. I don't know why they do that.
Well, they did that with Kenny. They let him go to Kennywood by himself.
Yeah, I don't know. A guy smiling on the ride the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of laughed at it. I thought it was a little funny. Pick 32 though was once the Steelers got to pick 32, once pick 31 was done, I think really everybody knew what was going to happen at pick 32.
Yeah, there was no surprise.
I think everybody had an inclination who it was going to be, what was going to happen. I'm surprised that Joey Porter fell to 32. I think that he was, when you see some of the corners that went in front of him, I think that he, just personal opinion based off of really what all of them kind of bring to the table, what both terms of pros, cons. I think Joey Porter fits the Steelers better than a couple of the other guys do based off how they play, what they excel in, succeed in. Not going to get in all the details on that. But when I can't believe where Forbes went. I know. I don't think there's anybody that predicted Forbes to go 16 to Washington. So it was kind of crazy. I thought Joey Porter was going to go there. But anyway, how pleased are you with the Joey Porter pick?
I think that when Joey Porter fell, it's for a couple of reasons. One, it's a lack of splash. He's only had one interception in his collegiate career. And two, I think it's his length mixed with the type of corner that he is. He's a man corner, get in your face, very handsy. And a lot of teams are going to more of like a zone style defensive situation with the backfield. And so I think those two things were kind of the reason why he may have fell. But when it comes to the Steelers and what they want to do, I mean, last year they had acquired William Jackson III, who was a very much a man guy. You have Patrick Peterson, who's learning the zone and being a part of that zone, but for most of his career was a man type of player and was able to shut down the opposition's best player. And you got a guy like Joey Porter who's physical, he's old school, he's going to play in the hip pocket of the receiver and be there and get his hands on balls. Now the fact that he didn't have a lot of splash, I don't think has a lot to do with the fact that he doesn't have the ball skills to get the interceptions. But in his last season, he was hardly ever thrown to. I think it was the first game they threw to him like 14 times and they ended up only throwing to him 30 times last season. So quarterbacks weren't throwing in his direction. So you're not going to get interceptions if you're not being thrown to. And so, I like his physicality. You look at, some of the teams that we're going to be playing in the AFC North. You're looking at Amari Cooper. You're looking at Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Let's look at their quarterbacks. Let's look at Joe Burrow. He's not a Patrick Mahomes guy that's got a freaking cannon of a gun on the arm that's going to make things down the field. Joe Burrow is more like read the defense, make some anticipatory throws, things of that nature. And if you can get the timing off between, himself and his receiver, that could lead to a little bit more pressure in his face. And in my opinion, Joe Burrow kind of, especially when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you may not have the interceptions, but, he takes a lot of sacks because of the pressure in his face. And, if you're able to get some pressure up front with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and some of the newer guys, Cam Hayward, then I think this is a good move for the Steelers. And it could disrupt a guy like Jamar Chase. I mean, there's that famous picture of Jamar Chase flicking off, Minkah Fitzpatrick, because Minkah Fitzpatrick got in his head and he was physical with him and he was throwing him off his game. And I think that Joey Porter Jr. is a similar type of guy. He's going to get in his head. He's going to be physical with the guy. He's going to hit him in the mouth up front in that first 5 yards and maybe be a little bit grabby. You got a guy like Patrick Peterson who's been in the league for a long time and has done it at a high level for a long time. Mentoring him as well kind of potentially could teach him some of the ins and outs of how to get away with being handsy down the field, little tugs here, little pulls there. And so I, for one, thought this was a great pick, especially given the fact that he doesn't have the pressure of being a number one. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to have a lot of pressure on his back. Being a son of Joey Porter Sr., who was a great Steelers linebacker, and also being the first cornerback taken, this high since Artie Burns. And so there's going to be some pressure there, but knowing that he's not a first-round pick, he's not going to be expected to be, the next Rod Woodson, so to speak, Hall of Fame cornerback, like Terrell Edmonds was expected to be Troy Polamalu because he was a first-round pick. And so, I feel that if Terrell Edmonds would have gotten drafted maybe in the second or the third, that pressure wouldn't have been as high on him. And so, with all that said, I think this is a perfect fit for Joey Porter and the Steelers to really get him to come in. He doesn't have to start right away. You have Levi Wallace there. You have Patrick Peterson. You can put him in and implement him on sub packages where you're putting Patrick Peterson in as a safety. And then you can kind of roll him out there. And so you don't have to throw the entire defensive playbook at him at one time. So I thought this was a great pick for the Steelers. Apparently, he's negotiating right now with Chris Boswell to get that number 9.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Dude, I don't want it
9.
to happen, bro. I don't want to see when these numbers come out. I don't want to see Joey Porter have 24, 25. No. Give him 9 or give him 5.
Yeah, I would like 5 too. I thought 5 was a good number.
Dude, seriously, I don't know what it is with the Steelers, man. They're so freaking weird with how they do jersey numbers and crap like that. Have fun with it. God, I know Rooney's freaking 75. He still thinks it's 1985 with the way that he wants to do stuff. No. Omar Khan's taking that over. It's a new era here, Art. Take a step back. Enjoy the recliner. Everything's fine. So, I don't know. I think 9 or 5 would be sick for him. But in terms of value, A+. In terms of value at 32, A+.
Oh, 100%. And the fact that this guy's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. He went to the draft expecting to get picked in one of the top 31 picks and expecting to walk on stage. And so, that didn't happen. So he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder to show the rest of the league. When he saw the
Steelers, he said when he saw the Steelers trade up to 14, he thought it was going to be him.
Yeah.
So,
and that tells you what kind of conversations they had.
Yeah, exactly. So, 1 second. But still, he still should be happy with how it all panned out. Everything worked out how it's supposed to for him. And I think everyone should be excited. We'll kind of see how fast he kind of gets on track with everything and really what the Steelers decide to do there with him. But he's got a lot of things that you like from a corner, from hands, from press, from his length, his size. And he's got somebody as well in Patrick Pearson that he can really learn a lot from. So hopefully Joey Porter can be a guy that catches on rather quickly than not, but I'm pretty confident in terms of his skill level and him fitting right in. So with their other second round pick, now there was a lot of things about them. They were getting a lot of calls with the 32nd pick, trading back, but they knew that they weren't going to be able to get who they wanted to get if they traded back.
Right.
49 was also a pick as well. Okay, well, they trade back 49 because we know they don't have a 4th, 5th, or 6th round pick at that time because they traded the 4th round pick to New England. So they decided to keep 49 and they take Keanu Benton, who was one of the 3 defensive tackles most likely going the second round, and out of Wisconsin. He's really good with the run and keen on that. I think Keanu Benton, when you look at the Steelers defensive line, I think he's only 22 or so around there, but right. He's going to have the opportunity to plug in and start week 1. So I was pretty satisfied with the pick, not just because we all knew they needed a defensive lineman, but out of the Florida defensive tackle Dexter, they liked Mozzie Smith, but Michigan defense tackle, but he got drafted toward the end of the first round to Dallas. And then this was also another guy they really liked a lot. So he's going to be able to have himself surrounded with some defensive linemen that he can, aside from Cam Hayward, he's going to come right in and battle for a starting spot because Leal and Montravius Adams, stuff like that, he's going to fit in right away. And I don't expect him to not be somebody that doesn't start, if not right away, early on. So another pick I'm excited about, I thought was a really good pick for them at that time. And the Steelers liked him a lot in the sense of from before the draft and all that kind of stuff like that. But when we know the Steelers struggle from really the last couple of years of being a team struggling to stop backs, he's going to be a guy that specializes in that and that they hope can fit right in and be an immediate impact. So do you like Keanu Benton there at 49?
Yeah, man. I thought that he was a guy that the Steelers might go and grab at the, around at 32, and I thought he had some great value at 32. The one thing that really intrigues me about him is that he's got the size, right? So you had guys like Jalen Carter that the Steelers were rumored to thinking about moving up to the number 9 position to go grab, but he's a little bit undersized. When you look at Keanu Benton, he's 6'4", 309 pounds. He's a big guy. He's a guy that can play the nose. Him, Brendan Fiocco, who was the guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers got from the Chargers this offseason, and Martavius Adams are going to be a force there in that nose tackle. I think Martavius might be the odd man out when it comes to these two guys here, given just the size and ability. But I think this guy's definitely going to be a starter depending on the sub packages that are in. If it's your typical 3-4, then yeah, I think he's going to be out there as your nose. However, he's a guy that also can move to the side. He's got, like I said, the size, the weight. He's a guy that I'm excited about, and I think the Steelers got some pretty good value. There was some questions or some people saying that maybe he goes at the end of the first and then early in the second. Getting him at 49 without having to move back or move forward or anything like that, and getting your guy is perfect. And you got a guy like, for instance, Cam Hayward, who is getting up there in age, who had to play, last season. They wanted to put him on a snap count, and then instead, not only did they have to play him more, they had to play him out of position and put him as nose sometimes. So that just kind of tells you how big of a need this position was. So, for the Steelers to go up there and get their guy in Keanu Benton, man, I'm excited. He's very much against the run, has a running, that's his strength, is the run defense, but he does have a few sacks. And so he can pressure the quarterback. I don't think he's going to be, to the caliber of a Javon Hargrave right out the bat, who had that pass rushing ability. But I think he is going to be somewhat similar in that aspect. But I think that his run defense is going to be even better than that of Javon Hargrave.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with just the size. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially when you're going up against especially when you're going up against, the teams like the Browns twice a year with Nick Chubb, and you have, Baltimore that has like 4 quarterbacks in the backfield. 4 running backs in the backfield at all time. You got to be able to stop the run. And he's got some quickness to him, going side to side, lateral movement. So when you see, the opposition, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, try to do some of those read options and hold on to the ball. He's not a guy that can easily be taken advantage of in those situations. He's got the hips to move and be able to, in that short distance, tackle the quarterback. And so obviously if he's up in the open field with one of those two guys, it's probably not in his favor. But, in the middle there with all the traffic that you have, he's going to be solid. Like I said, it was almost as if this draft, up until the third, even fourth round, was like as if you turned off all the other teams and was just picking what you wanted. Because these were guys that they wanted in positions they needed. 100%. So,
I didn't expect really any of these guys to be there when the Steelers picked, but they've needed help with their run defense. We'll see how their new inside linebackers do together. With that, they're really hard hitters. They like to do the dirty work. So bringing a guy like this in there is something that I think has been desired for, because not really knocking on Adams or anything like that, but he's not really much of a standout guy to me. DeMarvin Leal got hurt last year, and Alu we know he's 36. He's not even on the team anymore. So they've lacked some help there. So bringing in him with Cam and Ogunjobi being back, that's a nice thing to have. And getting him at 49 is fantastic. And that's one thing about the Steelers draft, is that not just the players they got, but where they got them at. Like, you couldn't ask for anything better. But that's what I mean. All 3 of those guys we've talked about so far are guys that can make impact this year and can be long-term guys, 100%. This other guy, 3rd round, Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia. A lot of people were surprised how much this guy was falling. There's people have been saying that some teams were kind of concerned with a knee injury of his. But in the 3rd round, at pick 90, I believe, and he's there, pick 93, and he's there. The Steelers were like, hey, there's a lot to like about this guy. We know and understand. I'm sure they obviously knew, too, why he might have been falling quite a bit. Maybe more so than they expected. But, dude, this guy's a freaking bowling ball. Dude, this guy is an absolute freaking tank. And not only is Najee Harris going to love running behind this guy, but Matt Canada better freaking utilize this guy when they're at the 1 yard line. That's what he better freaking do. So I'm
100%.
excited about Darnell Washington. I think a lot of people thought he might be one of the top steals of the draft. His pass catching ability isn't necessarily one of his top hierarchies, but he can still he can still catch and stuff like that. But he doesn't really have like speed or really how you want from a normal typical tight end in terms of pass catching ability. But dude, he's somebody that they're definitely going to utilize a lot with running the ball, and they better utilize it with short. If they're inside the 5 in the end zone, a 3rd and 1, anything like that, any certain scenario where it's short yardage as well, they can definitely utilize him. But he can be a really special player here, and I'm sure that you really like this pick as well.
100%, dude. So the Steelers actually, they had 80, and then they moved back to 93 to acquire the 132nd pick. So
that's where they got their that other pick from.
Right, exactly. And so at 80, I was conversating with my father, and I was like, "Holy smokes, Darnell Washington's still on the board. He's still on the board." And then we moved back, and I'm like, "Damn it!" And I was looking at who were there, and I thought that this guy was going to end up in orange and black with the Cincinnati Bengals because they needed a tight end. And so
I thought he was
like,
going to go in the end of the first round.
Oh, I did too. I thought first round, no way he gets out of the second. And so when he was there at 80, I thought that was a steal. Then they moved back to 93, and he's still there. I was like, man, you got to get him. You got to get him. And sure enough, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they brought him in on a pre-draft visit. And, that was probably kind of what started my hype on thinking that he could be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then when they called him out, it was great. Now, as far as what's going on, apparently at the combine, he had some puffy knees. And so, with a guy that size and a guy, his height, arthritis becomes an issue or whatnot with the knees. And I think that may have been what people were worried about. However, the Steelers have a fantastic medical staff. I'm sure they checked him out when he had his pre-draft visit and gave him the green light. Now, maybe he's not a guy that's going to be in the league for 10 plus years. But he's a guy that's going to, while he is in the league and while he's doing his thing, he's going to be a beast. And, as far as his catching ability, I honestly think he does have, better hands than credited for. Now, he wasn't the primary tight end in Georgia, and he doesn't have all the catching stats. But, a lot of that has to do with that ball was spread out in Georgia. And so, I think this is a guy that can tower over linebackers, defensive backs, safeties. And one of the biggest needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason was to figure out a way to get the ball into the end zone more often when in the red zone. And so this is a guy that's going to utilize and be able to do that. I anticipate a lot of 12 personnel, meaning that there's going to be 2 tight ends on the field.
Yeah.
And when you get into the red zone, there's the possibility.
And they can finally do that. They weren't really able to do that last year.
No, they weren't. And I mean, you can go big and you can have Pat Freiermuth, you can have Darnell Washington, you can have Najee Harris,
Najee Harris' touchdowns are going up this year.
Oh yeah. And the great thing about these guys is they all can catch, right? So if you go in there and they bring in bigs, the defense that is, spread them out and throw it over them. And they want to bring in a smaller package, run it down their throats. This gives you some options with this kind of guy on the team. And you have the weapons that you have, and you have the picket fence being built in the manner that it's being built. There is zero excuses for a guy like Matt Canada in this coming year. This should be a team that should put up 28 points pretty consistently, on the board. I'm not going to go to 30 yet. That's a tall task. That is kind of hard and difficult. And you have a lot of new pieces in there. But this is a team that should be hitting 25 to 28 points per game.
100%. I agree.
And with the defense that you currently have and going in there healthy, and you're thinking also that you're going to be able to control the ball. The Steelers last season, that became their identity, was the running the ball and controlling the ball, given this defense breaks and not having opportunities on the field for injury like they did last season. I can anticipate this team really being very good. This window is open, and I for one, have to, give a round of applause to Omar Khan and Andy Weidel in this situation.
Yeah, dude, it's a home run. It's an absolute home run. And there's no really, when you look at those 4 picks, you can't get you couldn't have asked for it. I don't even really know what I want to say here. Like, you couldn't, in turn, like, let's just say a fantasy mock draft, right? Fantasy mock draft for Steelers. I've seen them all out there. And if you would list from their first round pick to their third round pick with Washington, like, that's a fantasy mock draft right there for them. And the fact that it all happened, it all worked their way, like, that's what I mean. This is their first time in a long time where their draft just seems like better than, in my opinion, all these years. Let's say the last 10 years going through, and you don't even have to like look back at all of them. But when like the last 10 drafts have gone down, I don't think that I've had as much as excitement in terms of their draft all around. And going on to their 4th round pick, that's even another one a lot of people are happy about. Nick Herbig from Wisconsin. So they're going to utilize him a lot with the edge. And we know that they don't really have much behind Watt or Highsmith really at all. So they draft him. A lot of teams it seems like in terms of a con of his is more so his size, but his first step and his footwork is rather quick. He's going to get an opportunity as well to be a third guy. I still think that they can possibly look on the market for another edge, but Nick Herbig, they love Wisconsin. They love bloodlines, and that's who they decided to roll the ball with. So when we look at what from their first round pick to their 4th round pick, dude, you can't tell me otherwise. Like, there's other teams that had really good drafts. You can't tell me otherwise that there was a better team out of a better draft than Steelers. I don't care what anybody says. This isn't me saying it is a Steeler fan. Their draft all around. That's why I gave it A+. Value, players in the sense of them alone, and all these guys can bring something to the team rather than in years prior. If they're taking somebody in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, it's like, okay, it might take some time for them to add something or bring something to the team, or there's some questions. He's kind of raw, right? Rather, these guys are all guys that can contribute this year and can all have a long-term contribution here. So
100%.
That's what I really take away the most from their draft, and absolutely am ecstatic and love it. So with Herbig being their 4th round pick, how do you feel about him being one of the backup edge rushers?
This is a guy that when it comes to this draft, this is probably the only draft in a long time where I knew who these players were up to this part of the draft. Last season, everybody obviously knew who Kenny Pickett was and George Pickens. Leal, picked in the 3rd last year. I knew who he was because he's local to Texas, but not many people did. And the year before, once you got to the 3rd round, which was Kendrick Green, I don't think anybody knew who he was. And so, going all the way to the 4th round and knowing who these players are tells you the type of, draft and value that they got. Now, with Nick Herbig, I'm not entirely certain he's going to be an outside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're going to transition him into an off-ball linebacker, middle linebacker, and I think that's probably where he's going to find a home. He's 6'2". He's not going to get any taller. He weighs about 240. He can get a little bit bigger. I mean, he might hit the 248, 250, and you don't want him to get too much more bigger because then it's going to start to affect his athleticism. And so, the Steelers play a certain package where they had 3 outside linebackers on the field at the same time. This might be where he plays, and that might be his role on the defense. But I think this guy is going to be a special team ace as well. He's got he's very agile, very quick, and he's hungry and he's ready to hit. And those are the things that you look for when you look for a special teams ace. So I'm not necessarily sold on him being an outside linebacker, but I do think that he has the ability and capability of being an off-ball linebacker in the middle of the field. And if he can do that, I would recommend and hope that maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers see that and start transitioning him to that early in this offseason versus, going through rookie minicamp, having him on the outside a lot, and then realizing by the time OTA start and training camp that maybe perhaps they need to move him in. It just kind of loses a little bit of time. And so, but I think, I think he's going to be a great contributor. It's going to start off on special teams for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, I do think that they still need to get another edge out here. I think it was Alex Kozora who was saying this. It may have been somebody else, but they were looking at his tape against Ohio, not this year, but the year before, where he was playing against Paris Johnson and Dwan Jones. And he didn't look very much like 240 is what they said. And now I haven't looked at the tape. They said it was a little bit difficult for him because of his size. Now he's going to be going up against, offensive tackles of that stature in the NFL quite more often than he would have at Wisconsin. And so, taking that into consideration, it might be his best move to transition. You have two guys that the Pittsburgh Steelers signed in the offseason in Holcomb and Roberts that, can do the starting position or be the starters in middle linebacker position. You don't have to rush this guy in. Yeah. And so, it's a great, solid pick. I like it. And I'm excited to see what the Steelers do with this guy because I think he is a little bit versatile and they might be able to move him around.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely need some help on special teams too. So there's a couple guys that they've let go that contributed last year, and somebody like him definitely seems like he can be somebody like that. And then
I like Jared Devil's comment. If he hits the gym hard enough, he can get to 6'4".
yeah, he might be in this stream. I don't know. So maybe he might see that.
Hopefully so.
I don't know, dude. I don't know what it is with their love for family bloodlines. They love them.
I mean, I guess you figure if one person, gets to the NFL, which is very few percentage of the people that end up playing, like, for instance, Pee Wee football, high school ball, college ball. It's a small percentage of players that make it to the NFL. And if you have somebody that's in a family that gets there, then you can kind of assume that their family members have seen what it takes to get to the top and to be one of the elites. And maybe perhaps they'll be able to, do the same or understand what it takes and be able to mimic something similar. But yeah, it's funny. If you've had a father, a brother, an uncle, anybody play in the NFL, you got a chance to be a Pittsburgh Steelers. Even Robert Spillane.
Yeah, they do.
His dad was a Steelers draft pick back in the day.
Did not know that.
Or his grandfather, one of those two. I can't remember if it was dad or I think it was grandpa. He was a Heisman Trophy winner back in the day. It was a long time ago.
Did not know that. Well, I understand, like, they like to look at from the past, or if they got brothers, stuff like that, and if there's any type of similarities, anything like that. I think it's just crazy the amount of times that they do it, how often they like to find something family related or brothers, etc., etc. I feel like they're the only team that does that as often as the Steelers do. Speaking of something that the Steelers like to do, they like Maryland. They like their Maryland players. Yeah. They did not have a pick in the 5th or 6th round, which I think's fine. I don't think they needed to go trade in the 5th and 6th round to bring somebody in just for the sake of it. Quality over quantity at the end of the day. They draft Corey Trice out of Purdue, cornerback, and then they also drafted in the 7th round tackle Spencer Anderson out of Maryland. So once they drafted him, it's like, and there's the Maryland player. It was expected to happen. A lot of times the 7th round picks, we all know they're kind of sometimes flyers or certain things. Maybe you see if you can kind of get something out of these guys. But it seems like that the Corey Trice guy is somebody that some college analysts had ranked higher than just a 7th round pick. So Corey Trice is going to get an opportunity with some of these other guys like James Pierre, the guy that they signed from the Vikings. Don't know what they do with Akello Witherspoon. Don't know if they're going to keep him around and let him battle with these other guys, or if they're just going to cut him outright. Not really sure. But he's going to get an opportunity. And Are any of these 7th-round picks that you see maybe making the roster at all, or just kind of sticking on the practice squad for now, or what?
I mean, Corey Trice might be a guy that sticks on the. No, I honestly think that these guys can make the roster. I mean, you got a guy like Akil Weatherspoon that's going to be making a pretty good chunk of change this upcoming year, and so you might be able to get rid of him or get rid of that cost and value. Trice is a guy, like you mentioned, that was a guy that was expected to move up maybe in the 5th round, 6th round, not expected to be there in the 7th. He's a taller guy. He's like physically and attribute wise, looks a little bit like a Joey Porter Jr. Plays very similar. And so it kind of gives you an idea of what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do. They want to play man. They want to get in people's faces and apply pressure onto the opposing quarterback. I thought, I didn't really know too much about these two players in the beginning, and then kind of digging into them since. I think Trice can, eventually be a player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What it's going to come down to is his ability to play on special teams. If he's going to be a gunner, if he's going to be able to go down there and tackle, then that's when, that's going to be the bigger determining factor when it comes to Trice. When it comes to Spencer, in my opinion, I mean, he's the next J.C. Hassenauer. He's a guy that can play in multiple positions. He played a lot of games at center, a lot of games at guard, and a lot of games at tackle. So he's been able to move around quite a bit. I think he's a guy that when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, if Mason Cole were to go down with an injury, I don't think you want to move say Malu away from Broderick Jones, and I don't think you want to move James Daniels away from whether it's Chooks or Dan Moore on the right side. You're going to want to keep those guys together, and so you're going to need another center. Now there's the possibility of Herbig playing the role. I'm not sure how much time he's at under center, if that's a somewhere where he can actually be beneficial for the Steelers. He might be just a guard. And so, in my opinion, this is a guy that could be your backup center, be your guy that can play multiple positions, guard, tackle. And he's going to find himself on the team just because he can play multiple positions.
Yeah, that's very valuable. If you're able to find something like that in the 6th or 7th round, and that player is able to transition for you in the sense of being able to play at the NFL level, that stuff, it comes very valuable if they're that 6th, 7th, 8th lineman on your team. It really does. So I think that with them not going in the 5th and 6th round, had no problem with it. Don't do it just to do it. There was probably nobody that they could have probably if they wanted to, but just leave it as it is. So really overall with their draft, as we know how not just Steeler fans, but really just when you look at the sports media in general, love what they did. Do you think that this draft that they had this year, for this season coming up, not long term or anything like that, this season come up, do you think elevates them higher than where they were going into the draft for this season? Or do you kind of see them at the same kind of level right now?
No, I think this team got a lot better, especially up front in the trenches on both sides. And that's where you needed it to be. I mean, it's not just with the draft. You're looking at free agency as well. Sam Malu and Nick Herbig on the offensive side. Or was it Nate? I know there's two of them.
Yeah, Nate Herbig's the lineman.
Nate Herbig, yeah. So Nate, the acquisition of him, Sam Malu, and now, Broderick Jones, that's going to make this offensive line, and even Darnell Washington out there, Darnell Washington can take the place of the lineman eligible, in my opinion. And so now you have an option there where, for the last few years, number 72 eligible, if it was Zach Banner or whoever it was last year, that was the swing tackle. When they came into the game, that was either going to be a running game, which is going to be like 80% of the time a running play. Yeah. And the other 20% of the time, it was a passing game. There was one less person that's going to really be out there and be a threat in the passing option. That's no longer the case anymore. When you have a guy like Darnell Washington, he can pass block like a lineman and go out there and catch passes and be a threat down the middle. Right. So, in my opinion, this team has gotten exponentially better because of that. Kenny Pickett last season did a lot of great things with his legs and his mobility to add time to make things happen down the field. He's not going to have to do that anymore. And, when you look at, like, for instance, a guy like Andy Weidel, who came from from the Eagles. The Eagles tackles were left on an island more than any other team in the NFL last season. And they had two tackles that were not just able to do that, but, did very well. They also won more often than not when left on an island. I think their win percentage when left on an island and those two tackles was at the top of the league. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't have that luxury. The Steelers protected their offensive tackles the third most in the league. Only Miami and the Las Vegas Raiders utilized either a tight end to assist their tackles or brought in a lineman eligible to come in and help the tackles or had a double team for them. So that limits you, in my opinion, with what you can do in the passing game. Now that you don't have to do that, and you have, for instance, a Broderick Jones that, if he can do the things that he's supposed to do and be left out there and be that guy, then you can utilize that eligible or that lineman swing tackle as a passing option now. And you can get a little bit more creative when it comes to passing concepts and perhaps maybe even allow things to develop down the field. Kenny Pickett on his own, I saw him on the Cam Hayward podcast, and the guy looks noticeably larger, not in a fat way, in a muscular way. This guy looks bigger. Yeah. And, even Cam talked about it. He said, "Hey, are you going to be able to zip the ball a little bit faster now?" And, joking with him. And he was like, "Oh, I think I'll be able to do a lot of things faster and harder, including his running ability." And so,
a player's not a finished product his rookie year.
No, not at all.
Not even close.
Not at all. And, he goes into why he was so small last season. He ended up finishing the year at 213. Right now he's at 226, 227. So that's a noticeably difference when it comes to added muscle. And so, he talked about, when you're going into the combine, you're going into the draft type of stuff, it's all about getting your speed down and doing all those specific drills. And, now that he's got an off season to work on what he needs to work on to be on the field, it makes a big difference. And one of the things he wanted to work on as well is his neck. He talked about how he had a couple of concussions or was in the protocol last year a couple of times. And a lot of that had to do with that he wasn't working out his neck. And when he was getting slammed to the ground, his head was hitting the ground. And so he's working on that. He understands where he needs to work, and he's been working on it. And so I'm excited for this year, man. I think that this window is starting to open up if it's not open already. I think this is going to be a team that can control the ball on both sides of the field and control the trenches. And I, for one, am looking forward to it. I think that these players, alongside with the players that they've gotten in free agency, and I don't think the Steelers are done yet. We talk about probably getting another edge, maybe another outside linebacker is probably what is needed. There's waiver wires that are coming up. There's surprise cuts, money cuts that are going to have to happen before the year starts. And so the 53 that are going to be taking the field or that are going to be on the roster come week one of the season, I don't think that they're all there yet. So there's still going to be a few players that are going to be added to this team and to this roster. So I'm excited. And just seeing how aggressive the Andy Weidl and Omar Khan duo have been, I like it, man. This has been probably one
breath of fresh air.
It's a breath of fresh air. It's been one of the funnest or best, whatever, adjective you want to use, off seasons for the Pittsburgh Steelers in a very long time, in my opinion.
It has. And Kevin Colbert, he was one of the better GMs in the league, but it comes to a point, things get stale. It comes to a point where doing the same thing and then it's starting just to kind of be the same over and over again. Like you have to, it was time to move on. It was time to move on. He did his duty, did his service here for 20 some years. He did a lot of good things here, but with the way that he did things versus the way Andy and Omar Khan are doing things, you can already see the difference. They know what's got to be done. They're being aggressive. They've made moves that sometimes the Steelers wouldn't really quite do. They would just let the cookies crumble, stand pat, and just build their team through the draft and not do a lot in free agency. They upgraded multiple spots in free agency. They spent some money, and they had a draft that not just fell their way, but they did some things in the draft that were really smart, and it's going to make the team not just better this year, but longer term. There's a handful of effective guys that can make their name known, make an impact this year, and can even possibly be some cornerstones of the team. long term. So I'm really excited about it as well. I really am.
100. I just want to say congratulations to Jennifer out there. She's saying that her
Yep.
grandson is going to be induced tomorrow morning. That's exciting. Congratulations. There's
Congrats,
no
Jennifer.
baby news yet. The latest that my wife will go is May 11th. That's when she has her C-section scheduled. So if everything, there's still the possibility that she can go in labor at any moment. If I hear at the door, that means I got to go. And so, but no, not any news yet. I'm for those that aren't aware, I have the State of the Steelers YouTube show, but I'm also part of Steel Curtain Network. And I was talking with the boys there at the Steel Curtain Network, and they're like, "Hey, if she comes on draft night, you got to name her after the draft pick." And I was like, "I don't think Broderick is a good name for a young lady."
That would be great. Doing it for the culture, Daniel. If you did that, taking one for the team.
It would not. I thought, if they got Paris Johnson, maybe Paris, but Broderick, I don't know about that one.
yeah. I'm not really quite sure. Not really quite sure either about that, but yeah. So that's exciting for Jennifer. It's exciting for Daniel coming up as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think most Steeler fans should be. I really think every Steeler fan should be. But you have your couple sour ones out there. But most Steeler fans should be encouraged about the draft, should be excited about this season and the future about the team. And that was the thing with last year. We had no idea really how they were going to be. There were questions. It was really a different state of the team. And then it was like, okay, is this going to be a situation where they're going to have to really tear things down and have a rebuild for a certain amount of years? Or is it going to be something where they're going to be able to figure it out rather quickly? And that's what happened. They figured it out rather quickly. And the way they finished the year and where they're at now, they already have, I think, a future probably brighter than a lot of teams in the league right now. So we know the AFC is pretty competitive, especially compared to the NFC. That's what's going to make it fun, I think, this season. But that's why the division games are going to be so important for the Steelers this year. This isn't where it's just you got one team in the North and you don't really have to worry about the rest. I think all four have some pretty good rosters. Still at the end of the day, nobody's scared of the Browns. I don't even think anybody's scared of the Ravens. I don't care what anybody says. I think the Ravens have a good roster. I think that they can be a team but they're still really the same team last year, other than adding Odell in their draft picks. They've really brought back a lot of the same team. Cleveland, nobody's afraid. No. It's bark every year, and you're in the bottom of the barrel every year. So nobody really cares. But still, I think the AFC North will be competitive, though. I think it'll be good.
The good thing too about the NFL schedule and the way that it's been done is they've been pushing off those divisional games to the end of to the halfway point end of the season. You'll typically see one or two divisional games early on, but the other 4 games or so are usually right towards the end. So that's when this team should be, firing on all cylinders at that point, in my opinion. So, I'm not, the only team right now that's probably going to be, the Ravens have a good running game, right? And so do the Browns. If you can stop those things and make those quarterbacks become quarterbacks and use their arm, the Steelers, in my opinion, have that in the bag. The biggest, contest there is going to be with the Cincinnati Bengals, which it sounds weird to say still. It sounds so weird to say that.
I know. But you got to give them credit. You got to give them respect with where it's due, even if you don't have to like them. But what they were building to for 6-7 years has come and has been here. And it's hard to win the AFC North. It's hard to win a division 3 years in a row.
100.
So will that change this year? Could. But I think the AFC North is going to be pretty tight throughout the season. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be competitive. But really, even just when you look at the rest of the landscape of the AFC, it's a lot better than the NFC. I think there's some teams that, again, just get overhyped. There's going to be teams that you don't expect that are going to be better than what people think. There's going to be teams that people think are going to be pretty good and aren't. It's just the reality of it. Every year, you always have different playoff teams. You have 3, 4, 5, 6 different playoff teams every year. Teams that make a push, teams that get better, have a long-term future, teams who are kind of up here, but their time's dwindling and they're going to come back down. It's just the way it goes. But being a Steeler fan, all Steeler fans, we really saw all for as long as our window was open with Ben. And after that, we didn't really quite know when that next one was going to open. And it seems like it already is now. So, and it seems like that's just going to keep getting wider and wider.
100%,
so,
man.
But yeah, overall, guys, Daniel and I loved our draft. I think this was the best Steelers draft in a long time. I was really happy with all their picks. Broderick Jones, them trading up was fantastic. Joey Porter, fantastic value at 32. And also in terms of his attributes, his upside, what he brings to the game, what the Steelers like, he fits a lot of that. Getting the DT we know is very important for them in terms of stopping the run. Darnell Washington is going to be excited to really see how they use him. So we'll just and then we just got to kind of see what they do really coming in the offseason. So George says, I hope we play Settle early and run over Bush. Yeah, well, thank God he's gone. He's going to have it coming. The guy's scared. He's freaking scared to tackle anybody.
Oh, man. Can you imagine Devin Bush having to cover Darnell Washington?
Oh, dude, he'd be done.
It'd be over. He couldn't. There's no way.
It's too bad because before his injury, he was pretty promising. But I mean, what can you do? I don't really think he had the best attitude either with the team. No. But yeah, so Daniel and I
got a question before we go.
Yeah,
I got a question for you before we go. Yep. Is there a player that was drafted that you're looking forward to copying one of their jerseys? Is there a jersey that you would get out of this draft?
It's a good question. I'm gonna say Joey Porter.
You want Joey Porter? That would be a good one.
I'm excited. I hope that he gets 9 or 5. I would like to have a single digit jersey aside from Ben or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think him. Now, it's not going to be necessarily I get it right away. A lot of times I like to kind of see how these guys really progress and play out and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd say probably him. Afton said she'd take Washington. Even Washington, he wants to stay number 0. Let him stay number 0.
That is my choice, man. If he comes out and he balls out, I'm getting the big O, 0. Mount Washington. Not just Washington. Mount Washington.
Mount Washington. Yeah, that would be sick. That would be dope.
That would be the jersey, man, for me. Yeah. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. So I don't know. I don't know when they're going to come out with these jersey numbers. They usually do rather quickly. They haven't yet.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like even with I've never had an offensive lineman's jersey, but if Broderick Jones really becomes that tackle, we hope he does. I don't know, maybe like a shirt and I'll cut off the sleeves or something. Represent the big boy.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man! I almost got a Dotson jersey once, but it just didn't. He didn't.
Oh, dude! Thank God! Thank God you didn't get that. Yeah, I don't want to see Joey Porter be 24 because of Ike Taylor. I really don't. Let the Steelers let him have a little fun. It's not the 80s anymore. It's a different day and age. Come on. Nobody's number 7. Nobody's taking your precious number 1 for whatever reason. Who cares? Let them just, if they want a single digit jersey, it's available. Let them have it. So,
sure.
But yeah, Washington would be kind of sick to have. I think we'll see some of those, especially during the season. If Matt Canada cannot use that guy right, then there's no hope. There's ultimately no hope for him. So. But yeah, guys, we'll end it on that. Good episode here. Talk about the draft, our thoughts about that, kind of where we see the team going into this season. There's a lot of things to be excited about. And you guys as well, putting your thoughts out there on some of the picks, certain things you guys are optimistic about. We appreciate you all always tuning in. Those who are new, welcome. Daniel and I do this show. Usually during the season, we do it every Tuesday and Saturday, but since it's been the off season, we've had to kind of cut it back one day a week, primarily just because of really everything going on, or else it's literally just gonna be the same show after the same show for the most part. But it goes back and forth between our channels. So follow Daniel at State of the Steelers on YouTube. You can follow me right here at In Hindsight if you haven't. For those who have all tuned in, thank you. For those who are always here, we appreciate you guys and seeing you guys on here. Daniel and I will probably next week, so just keep up with our YouTube channels. We'll usually post something if we usually have it set ahead of time if we're going live, or if we're missing a week or skipping a week, we'll put that out there as well. So keep up with that, guys. But thank you all, each and every one of you. You know who you are in the chat. And other than that, Daniel, anything else you want to end on?
Nah, man. I think this is going to be a good season. We got to figure out what we're going to yell when Washington catches the ball. Can't be Heath or Muth.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is it going to be Heath for all the tight ends?
It might be. I mean, yeah,
it might be. But for Washington, saying Heath, it seems a little weird.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you want to yell Wash.
Yeah. So, I'm not really sure what you want to do. That there's going to be some fan out there that comes up with something and it's going to spread.
It probably will. I think I really like his nickname of Mount Washington, given the
Mount Washington's
cool.
At.
Yeah,
especially because he is a freaking mountain, dude. Holy cow!
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know,
but yeah, man,
we're all excited about it. It can't come here sooner. I still just fail to understand why the NFL offseason is so long. Meanwhile, the NBA and NHL and MLB are all year. So I just don't get it. So but we're all ready. It just makes the anticipation that much more exciting. But at the end of the day, guys, we will, I don't know, probably as of now, Tuesday. But again, just keep up with our YouTube channels because we'll post if we're going to go live or not. Jennifer says maybe Mount.
That might be it. That might be it. But Daniel, get that jersey on pre-order, bro. I will, dude. As soon as I find out it's a 0, it's ordered.
yeah, it's ordered. Watch, they'll give him number 80.
No,
that'd be terrible. That would be
terrible.
Yeah, it really would. But I don't know. But guys, we're all excited here. Exciting draft, exciting time to be a Steeler fan, exciting for the season and the long-term future of this team, guys. So again, thank you all here. We will see you next time we go live. And in the meantime, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day, your weekends, and we will see you all next time. Thank you.
Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heitz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J.